Hello, everyone, and welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Please introduce yourself and the name of your business.
I'm Eric Martens, and I own Border Brewing Company. We're a brewery and tap room in Kansas City, Missouri.
Awesome, awesome. We look forward to learning so much more about your business. But before we go there, we want to learn a little bit more about your journey. And we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I was a chemical engineering major at Kansas State University and going through school for that. Had a roommate of mine that burst into my room one day and said, "Eric, we've got to go check out this home brewing class, how to brew your own beer at home." And so it took very little convincing for me to go try this night class out. One of these places that kind of, does hobby courses and that sort of thing. So we're just learning it for fun, got introduced to a lot of great people. Still love the homebrewing community, even though I've turned professional on this. It's just a lot of fun where people are trying new things out. And I got to kind of learn how to do it there and fell in love with the process of it and kind of brewed off and on throughout college and after I graduated. And, just got to a point in my career and in my life and saw an opportunity here in Kansas City where all those things kind of merged together at the same time and decided to quit my job and start a brewery. So,
Okay. Now, chemical engineering, now it sounds like you know how to whip up all the ingredients and make it really happen. When you finished school, you kind of worked your way into the brewery. What'd you do once you got out of school?
so when I got out of school, I took a job with an engineering consulting firm here in Kansas City and did that for about 6 years. And, most of it was in the oil and gas industry. So I was traveling quite a bit, especially in kind of the second half of that.
Hmm.
And, a lot of time out in the field in some small towns in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and got to a point where on one particular project, I had a lot of downtime, and I was told I needed to stay on the project till it was done. Even though I kind of pushed back, it was like, "Hey, there's nothing for me to do here. We need you to stay. Nothing for me to do."
Hmm.
Back and forth, and so I ended up in a trailer with a couple of weeks of extra time, and I don't do well with idle time for the most part. So
Right.
um, kind of started to just read up on how to start a business, kind of polish my brewing skills and look into how to scale that into a commercial scale. And it kind of the idea kind of all started there in a trailer in Medford, Oklahoma.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Hey, man, as you shared, chemical engineer, that's something that you had to prepare for going into school. Like I'm a business major, so I was like, okay, easy peasy. I learned how to do this, that, and the third. You're doing chemical compounds. You're trying to figure out all stuff I have no idea about. Got into the industry, was doing it with the oil and gas. Was there an event that happened that made Eric say, hey, look, I'm going to, get out of this industry that I wanted to do for a long time and then burn the ship and go all in on my brewery? Was there an event there?
Yeah, there was. I'd say, right out of college, I had my life kind of carved out for me. Thought this is going to be great. This is a good paying job. It's steady. It's stable. What more do you want, right? And uh, really on this kind of final field project that I was on, um, once and I like I said, I was kind of reading up on these books and um, thinking about it, but there was like a final week that I was supposed to come home, and I was like, I was ready, man. I was 25. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm single. I'm hoping to get back and meet up with my friends and go out and stuff. And the boss like told me I needed to be out there for another 2 weeks,
Oh my God.
and something in my brain just kind of clicked. Like at that moment, it was like. Um, Screw this, man. Like I'm out of here.
Hmm.
So there was part of that, just kind of an anger response.
Hmm.
Um, but I was also just stressed. And I think sometimes that stress that you get from a moment like that seems awful at the time, but it elicits this radical change. And so something flipped in me at that point. And instead of just kind of reading about it, that was when it went from reading books and talking to my buddies about what ifs and all that, to really actually sitting down, developing a business plan, and starting to move the thing forward into getting things in place so we could get the business started.
Awesome, awesome. So now you've burnt the ship, you've jumped off the curb, and you're into a brewery business. Tell us all about your brewery and how you're out here helping the people.
Yeah, so we've been in Kansas City, Missouri for a little over a decade now. We're in the Crossroads Arts District, which is kind of just right next to downtown. This is a growing neighborhood, a place that I've lived around. I've lived in for longer than 10 years, so I'm familiar with the neighborhood and sort of saw the opportunity. We're now one of about half a dozen breweries down here. There's some distilleries as well, so we're in this nice little pocket of kind of craft alcohol, if you will. And yeah, I started and called it Border with the vision of bridging the gap between beer drinkers and beer lovers. You know,
Hmm.
the people that kind of drink it to tolerate it or don't really, they're just drinking it sort of passively, and the people that are sort of the craft beer nerds, which I include myself in that category. Um, and so I wanted it to be as approachable as possible. I wanted to start it with some styles um, that were kind of open ended, and so that anybody that came in for the first time, maybe never tried craft beer before, could find something that they like. And just in my home brewing days, that was always the most enjoyable part of the experience, right? I mean, my chemical engineering and all that, I did love the process. I loved refining, tweaking, I love scaling it, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of it all, my favorite part was getting to share it with people and kind of seeing that light bulb moment of them trying something new and going, wow, I had no idea that this could taste like that. Tell me more about it. And just having those conversations. And so I wanted to take that homebrew feeling and sort of put it out there,
Hmm.
and make it so that anybody that's coming in, it's just like anybody that's behind our bar, or whether it's myself or my brewer or whoever that's talking to somebody that comes in, they feel like they're just talking to the guy that made it. They're interested in learning about it. They're getting to try something new, and they're going, "Wow, I had no idea." And so that's kind of what we're trying to foster is turning people on to craft beer that maybe otherwise wouldn't be, or might feel a little intimidated by it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm confident you have a great line of options there for people to choose from. But if you don't mind, because I know it has happened, share with us one of those stories where you thought you were creating something, it was a catastrophe, and then you turned it into one of your better sellers. Tell us about that story? I know you got
Oh man. Yeah, I do. I'm trying to pick which catastrophe I want to talk about. Um, it's so there was one. I won't get too into the weeds on how we have this recipe, but our current top seller, and has been for the last actually 9 years, is our strawberry blonde ale. And so we have this fruited beer that's not super sweet, like very sessionable, meaning you can have more than one. And um, it was actually my wife's idea, and I was like, I'm not putting fruit in our dang beer, that's
one.
crazy. But then we tried it and it went well, so we started scaling it and just producing a lot of it. And there was one day where we're going to kind of do our strawberry and our additives after the fact, and we put just the wrong ingredient in it. We put what we thought was some flavoring. It was lactic acid. And it's like, what are we going to do with this? Is it ruined? Whatever. And this is where I might nerd out about the science just a little bit. So what we ended up doing was just adding the rest of the ingredients like we normally would. And this made it a little more acidic. Well, come to find out afterwards that strawberries naturally have lactic acid in it.
Hmm.
And so what we did on accident was kind of make it taste more like a strawberry. And so um, the product in the end was actually better. And we sort of made this mistake, and I think it's made it a superior product to any of the other strawberry beers that I've had. And it was a happy accident, I guess. So we thought that batch might be ruined. We said, let's go ahead and finish it out, see how it tastes. And then we were like, holy cow, this is even better. And we've kept that recipe ever since.
Man, that's a great story there, especially if it's one of your better sellers. So, hey, listen, man, it is one of those things where it would have never happened if you would have never got out of that trailer and got on to doing your own business. So, it goes along that theme of just doing it, and you ended up coming up with something that's a constant for you there. Now, we've talked a little bit about the selections that you have. I want you to tell us more about the tap room part of it, because we know for those people that are in that Kansas City area, they need to have somewhere to go. So tell us all about your tap room there.
Yeah, we're on 18th Street in the East Crossroads here in Kansas City, and like I said, we've been here for about a decade. We started in a very small spot and then relocated during the pandemic. So we expanded a little bit. We're able to buy our building and kind of plant our flag down here in the neighborhood. So yeah, I mean, definitely, if you're in the area, come check us out. But wherever you are, I always recommend go find a small brewery tap room. Look them up and make sure it has the kind of stuff you want, whatever you want to do to kind of do your research ahead of time. But you're always getting a fresher product when it's directly from the tap room, and freshness is so important with beer in particular. And this is something I preach all the time. It's like if you're going to the liquor store, that beer that's on the can on the shelf had to sit in their warehouse in the back for a while. It sat on in a distributor's warehouse before that. It sat on trucks. And so that product could be 3, 6, 12 months old by the time it gets to your shelf. But all of the stuff in our tap room, and this is pretty common, is 2 months or less old. So if
Mhm.
you really want the best product, this is one of those areas where I think a small business can actually deliver on a superior product just by nature of kind of how it's made on the small scale and with this direct to consumer tap room kind of model.
Nice, nice. Now, for the individuals, you're providing them with a fresh brew. You're providing them with some unique selections. Do you guys do anything like live music or trivia, anything like that to provide for additional guests?
Yeah, we do. We have live music occasionally. Every Wednesday night is trivia night. We have our own unique way of doing it. If you're into trivia at all, I highly recommend it. And even if you're not, it's a fun format that's different than I've seen at most bars. And then Thursdays, we're doing test batch Thursdays for, I don't know what the number is up to, but it's, I think, about 100 weeks. It's over 100 weeks now in a row. We've come up with a new batch, a new brew every Thursday of just something creative. Sometimes it's fairly simple. Sometimes it's kind of wild and crazy, but that's been really fun to get customer feedback on that. And it's fun for us too to try some new things out and experiment with new techniques or ingredients. So well, yeah, there's always stuff going on here, events going on in the tap room, and we're always coming out with some new fresh products.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I know you've been doing this for a little while. Tell us a little bit about stores and your distribution and things like that. Have been able to crack that ice, or is that something in the future for you guys?
We're working on that right now. We've been self-distributing for the last 2 years, and that's been just kind of bars and restaurants here locally around our neighborhood. I mean, we have an old delivery van, and we're just schlepping beer around and kind of keeping a close radius. But
Hmm.
we're looking at scaling that now, and we're in conversations with some potential distribution partners to try to get to more of the KC metro area. So I think that's about as big as we probably want our distribution footprint to get,
Hmm.
just because of the way that beer is now. When we started in 2015, there were, I think, about 2,500 breweries. That number's around 10,000 now. So the growth has been pretty big, but the beer market has stayed roughly the same. So what's happened is we have a lot of small breweries like ourselves opening up in neighborhoods, having a small distribution footprint, putting fresh beer out on the shelves. And so it sounds like it's become really hard for these regional breweries to kind of compete with that, right? So
Hmm.
so I think realistically, our distribution footprint being kind of KC Metro wide, still keeping it fairly tight, just servicing our city is probably about as big as we want to be before we're starting to sacrifice quality and maybe have issues with getting out competed by other brands that can be fresher and more direct to the consumer or closer to the consumer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that plan, because it's important for entrepreneurs to understand you can't always be something that you're not trying to be, because you had a great point with your focus is on freshness and flavor. And if you do that where it's sitting on the shelf for 16 months, before it gets to it may not be the same thing that you've experienced. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that about your business. And we've talked a lot about your journey as a chemical engineer. We talked about how you made the sacrifices to start the brewery. And I'm confident over that time, you have acquired and nurtured some business skills or best practices that have helped you with that success. Do you mind sharing with the audience some of those best practices? Maybe they can add it to their mix.
Yeah, sure. Man, I think maybe the biggest lesson skill that I've learned along this is just perseverance, which may sound a little trite, but when you have this business plan, I've talked to aspiring entrepreneurs before where they're asking me about their business plan, they're tweaking it, and I'd say more than half the time I look at it and go, "Yep, that looks good enough. Move on."
Hmm.
And because what happens is you start the business and you can basically throw that thing away. Nothing goes the way you planned it. You have all these headaches and problems that you need to solve that you didn't anticipate, uh, and so that's where the real work is, in my opinion. It's after you start. And there are just so many moments where, I mean, there have been moments where I've just wanted to give it up and quit. And at one point, my wife said to me, "Well, you can always go back to your old job." And I was like, "All
Hmm.
right, I'm back. I don't want to do that."
Nice.
Um, so, I think just sticking with it is the name of the game. If you can do that and look at every uh, quote unquote problem as an opportunity for you to gain a new skill and you to grow on your entrepreneurial journey, however you want to put it, because it truly is. I mean, the hardest things I've had to deal with have resulted in the greatest skills I think that I've acquired. So
Hmm.
um, I'd say persistence is one. Uh, just there's a lot of talk about self-care that looks different for everybody else. For me, I think developing a habit of manufacturing some kind of stress on a regular basis
Hmm.
to train myself to be ready for the stress of business
Yeah.
has been highly valuable. So that's going to the gym, working out. It can be I'm doing cold plunge. It can be whatever it is, something where you're getting used to that sensation of feeling uncomfortable,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of similarities between that, say, when you're working out, and what happens when you get some bad news about your baby, your first business.
Right.
It's the same fight or flight response in your brain that's working. And so I think the more repetitions you can have at activating that sort of on a fabricated level,
Hmm.
the more equipped you're going to be to handle that down the road. And so um, that's just something that I had zero skill at getting started, and I've really learned the value of. And it's now, going to the gym, having some kind of exercise is like a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is very important for people to understand, hey, look, we may have a plan, but it may not go that way all the time. But the most important key is to continue to go and not go back. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that. And we've talked a lot about the journey, the business, and those business skills that have helped you to be successful. But I want to turn the corner just a little bit and talk a little bit about Eric. So let's just say everything is come along fine, nothing, no problems, everything is good, time is money, not an issue. What is it that Eric would do with his time?
Oh man, it's you run a small business, it's hard to even sit and think about that sometimes. If everything got to a point where I was able to kind of step away, I think having gotten into that sort of health and fitness space, like I just mentioned, I have a passion for that. One thing I didn't mention was in college I was pre-med as well,
Oh
and
my
so
goodness.
I thought I was going to be a doctor. Ended up deciding to go the engineering route, and I wasn't going to be cut out to be a doctor. That wasn't for me. I didn't have the patience for it. No
Hmm.
pun intended. But
Hmm.
um, so I think some area where I could help people. And then another part of this journey is like I do feel the responsibility of producing alcohol, maybe the burden of that at times, because I've seen what it can do to people.
Hmm.
We just released our non-alcoholic beer line at the beginning of this year, which is uh, is no small feat in terms of the process of it. It's very difficult to make. We're the only local guys doing it here in Kansas City. So,
Hmm.
um, and part of that was because um, I wanted to have an option for people who are making a choice to not drink, whether it's for a day, a month, or forever.
Hmm.
Um, and so, and then I've seen people struggle with alcohol, struggle with stress, anxiety, depression in their lives. And I've had my own battles with all of those things as well. And so if there's some area where I feel like I could help other people that are in that situation and coach them and, or whatever it was, put information out there that helps them. I think it'd be somewhere around that, because now that I've sort of lived through a lot of this stress and stuff that it takes to start a business, been around alcohol for a while. I think I'm in that position, and I have this passion where I do want to try to help people if they are where I was, and could just use some advice or some kind words or some coaching or whatever it is. I think I could see myself landing somewhere there.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that and talking about that. If people have questions about the brewery, about some of these business skills, or even how to contact you on some of those events you've had in your life, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Shoot me an email. I'm Eric, ERIC, at borderbrewco.com. You can check us out on social media. We're at Border Brew Co. on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or just check out our website. You can contact us through there, borderbrewco.com.
And if I'm local, tell me the address and about where you are again.
Yeah, we're 512 East 18th Street. So we're on 18th Street, right between Locust and Cherry, East Crossroads. We're right in the middle of the row of breweries down here. So yeah, come check us out if you're in the neighborhood, and come say hi.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing today. We truly do appreciate that. And we always honor our guests by giving them the last word. So, Eric, please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
If you're starting a business, running a business, and you feel like it's overwhelming right now, just keep at it. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned. You're doing better than you think. It's hard to see it because you're right in the middle of it. But if you come out on the other side of this thing, you will have developed skills and leveled up in a way that you're probably not seeing right now, and it is worth it every time you make one of those steps. So, and of course, I understand not everybody can stay with the business forever. There are times where you have to exit or whatever it is. But in my experience, and just from what I've learned over the last decade plus of doing this, every time that you have one of these major stressors and you feel like you can't do it, and then you do it anyway, you come out ahead. So just keep at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today, Eric.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.